Alright, Blackie Speaks presented us with a new video about Lil Nas X. You remember the gay nigga who did the Old Town Road thing? If you didn't see, alright, well, for backstory, last thing I heard about him is he was walking through LA with his ass out, so I don't know what's up
Old
with that.
Town Road
But
rapper Lil Naz X has been charged with battery on a police officer after he was arrested and hospitalized in Los Angeles.
Now, I'm sure a lot of you have seen the recent headlines about Lil Nas X. He's been trending for a public situation that happened out in Los Angeles, and it's gotten a lot of people talking. But there's a lot more to this story than just a viral clip. From health scares to cryptic posts to what he's admitted himself, it paints a much bigger picture about what's really going on with Lil Nas X. Most people know the face, and they definitely know the name. Lil Nas X is a rapper and singer who blew up a few years ago and ended up with one of the biggest songs of this generation. Old Town Road didn't just dominate the charts, it became the best-selling digital single of all time, and it spent a record-breaking 19 weeks at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. Before the success, he was just a young man from Atlanta experimenting with sounds, blending country and rap in a way nobody had really seen before. And in late 2018, he purchased an instrumental he heard online, made a song over it, released it, and then became a sensation overnight, and the rest is history. However, after the success came the antics, the controversies, and the wild moments that kept him in the spotlight. But over time, things started to slow down, and eventually, it got quiet on his end. These days, Lil Nas X isn't as popular as he used to be, and now with this latest story making headlines, a lot of people are asking the same question. What's really going on with him? So a few days ago, videos started spreading online of Lil Nas X walking down Ventura Boulevard in Los Angeles, naked, wearing nothing but his underwear and a pair of cowboy boots. I mean, he was lost and was even talking incoherently to a driver who was recording him, which, initially I thought that this person was kind of like a part of, a skit or something, but it turns out that this was like a real situation that happened. It wasn't like staged or anything like that.
Who let this nigga go?
Imagine being able to build anything just by thinking about
Anytime I feel like I'm feeling myself, YouTube with these ads be humbling me, bro. It reminds me of how I just broke. I can't even fucking afford YouTube Premium. I'm broke as shit, bro. Oh my god. Who was recording? Like, this is some LA shit for real.
Police were called to the scene just before 6 a.m. that morning, and when officers arrived,
who let him go out like this?
At them, which led to some type of scuffle, and he got arrested. Before they took him into custody, though, they suspected a possible overdose, and that's when he was rushed to the hospital. A few hours later, he got released from the hospital and was booked into jail on misdemeanor charges, including battery on a police officer. But since then, things have escalated. Lil Nas X is now facing 4 different felony charges, and if he's convicted, he could be looking at up to 5 years in state prison. Nas ended up spending a few nights in jail before pleading not guilty in front of a judge. Just the other day, he was released on a $75,000 bond while this case continues to play out. Before this happened, Lil Nas X had already raised eyebrows online. After being MIA on social media for a while, he suddenly came back posting a flood of random content in abundance on Instagram with some cryptic captions. So a lot of people are wondering, what headspace was he really in? The day of this incident, by the way, surveillance cameras actually caught him at the Shore Stories Hotel in Los Angeles, a place where he wasn't a guest. At around 1:30 p.m. in the afternoon, he was seen walking around the courtyard, fully dressed in jeans, boots, a button-up shirt, and a cowboy hat. He wandered aimlessly, grabbed a glass of water from the lobby, and eventually sat on a bench where he removed his shirt. And from there, things eventually escalated to what we just spoke about. This entire moment hit the headlines hard, especially because of how public it was. I mean, when you have a possible overdose tied to your name and you're a Grammy-winning artist, obviously that's gonna grab everyone's attention. So a lot of people have been, speculating if he was on drugs, which obviously that's not a path that I want to go down, because at the end of the day, that's not the point of this video. But I do want to mention that his lawyer has already pushed back on those claims, insisting that, that wasn't the case in this situation. And honestly, that's why I think it's more important to kind of look at the bigger picture, because when you do, you realize that, this is not the first struggle that Nas has been through, and that's kind of been connected to his story. And it's not just him either we're talking about. We're even talking about some stuff in his family background, right, which plays a part in his story. Nas himself has spoken about how his mother has battled addiction her whole life, which is something he addressed after he blew up. After his success, people spotted his mom out on the streets begging for money, and he ended up getting a lot of backlash for it. People questioned how he could be so successful while his own mother was struggling. But Nas made it clear that he tried to help her, I'm assuming with rehab, but ultimately she couldn't stick with it. In his own words, "I never really talk about my mom. She's an addict, so we don't have the closest relationship." And it's not the only struggle he's had to face. Back in April, he posted a video from a hospital bed showing that he had suddenly lost control of the right side of his face. In the clip, he tried to smile but couldn't, saying, "This is me doing a full smile right now, bro. I can't even laugh right now." People immediately started worrying about him, but he kept his usual humor about it. He reassured people that he was okay, even joking, saying, "Stop being sad, shake your ass for me instead," which Definitely sounds like Lil Nas X, right? Now, doctors never really said what caused it, but a lot of people online thought it might have been Bell's palsy or Ramsay-Hunt syndrome, which both are temporary nerve conditions that can pop up from stress or infections. Justin Bieber actually had the same thing a few years back and even had to cancel shows because of it. Even while he was recovering, Lil Nas X tried to stay positive, telling people he'd just look funny for a little bit and that he'd be fine. And honestly, I think that's the best attitude to have. You know, they call it the attitude of gratitude. Focus on the things that are actually going well for you and kind of have that optimism in your spirit.
Yo, what if this is all just like an album promotion? Like, low key, this is something he would do for album promotion. Let's be realistic, bro. If you've been following him for a couple, like, I remember back when he did the Call Me by Your Name shit. This could be an album promotion, bro. I think it is, bro.
The truth is, you know, a lot of health issues can actually feel worse depending on how you think about them. Your mindset really does play a big role in your recovery. Ask me how I know. I'm sure most people remember just how popular Lil Nas X was at one point. Old Town Road was literally everywhere. The song gave him one of the strongest introductions to the music industry we've ever seen. But what really made it stand out was how disruptive it was. I'm sure a lot of people remember this, but Billboard actually removed it from the country charts, saying it didn't qualify as country. And that sparked a massive conversation about race and genre in music back when he was blowing up. Because, you know, like, why can't this young black man who made a country song and kind of mixed it with rap not be on a country charts? We gotta have that conversation, which, you know, a lot of people were having that conversation back then, including me. And then when Billy Ray Cyrus jumped on a remix, the record became unstoppable. Lil Nas X used that momentum to his advantage by following it up with a few big records and kept on climbing. His Montero Call Me By Your Name video sparked outrage in early 2021 from conservative groups. The same shoes led to a lawsuit by Nike, who was on his back, and the fake pregnancy photos had social media in a frenzy. But throughout all the controversy, he proved that he wasn't just a one-hit wonder, which is a narrative that a lot of people have kind of been, you know, going around saying for a long time. But statistically, Lil Nas X is not a one-hit wonder. Industry Baby with Jack Harlow, which was a huge record, hit #1, and he showed the world that he could still make another hit and dominate the charts. If there's one thing that always kept him in the spotlight though, it is his antics. He's always found ways to create a conversation around his name, and for better or worse, those moments kept him trending, and that's how he was able to generate attention and buzz around his music.
Bro, like what he's doing right now.
Lil Nas X closely since his blow up, and is now just hearing about this story. Here's something you might not know. Earlier this year, Lil Nas X
he's interviewing with Mike Tyson.
The last few years of his life have been pretty difficult. He admitted that he lost confidence and that he was way too focused on how his music was performing instead of just enjoying the process and creating freely. And I don't know if this was a direct result of you know, him coming up off of all that success he had, but it would definitely make sense. I mean, you know, especially in his situation as someone who generated so many eyeballs and so many streams and so much success and so much money on, right? One thing that happens to a lot of artists is, especially after a massive breakout moment, that pressure just keeps on growing and growing heavier. The record label is expecting a return on their investment, and suddenly it's not just about making music anymore, it's about making all that money back for them. And so it goes from this thing where you were doing just for fun, and now it's like, yo, we gotta hit these quotas, man. And I'm sure a lot of people know, but Lil Nas X has always been viewed as a troll, someone who knows how to push buttons and create headlines. And that's one of the biggest reasons why when a story like this comes out, a lot of people don't take it seriously. Instead, you see people online pushing back, cracking jokes, making fun of him, almost brushing it off just like it's another stunt. So the response to the story has been very harsh, unfortunately, and a lot of people thought that this literally was a fake stunt, but it's not. Like, this is real. He's literally in court facing multiple felonies. That's obviously one of the downsides of leaning into antics for so long. Build a reputation around shock value. It can end up downplaying serious situations that you might go through in life. People simply stop knowing where
Think of it as like the boy who cried wolf. Like, he did it so many times. When something actually happens, like when something real actually happens, you're not really going to believe it. So I kind of got that approach with anything that happens to this nigga, bro.
the line is between performance and reality. I really can't stress this enough, but you never really know what someone is going through behind the scenes.
Saucy Santana got nothing on this nigga, bro.
You know, there's been a lot of noise around his name the past few years because of the antics he's leaned into and the headlines he's created. But that doesn't erase the fact that behind all that, he's still a human being dealing with real struggles. I mean, this guy blew up at the age of 19. He's practically spent
broke as shit.
the majority of his 20s in the spotlight, which he's been under obviously like a huge microscope the entire time he's been trying to figure out who he is. Does the average 20-something-year-old deal with that? Obviously not. Most people in their early 20s can make mistakes, can grow quietly, can mess up, and then can just move on. But when you garner all this attention, you are now under a microscope, and it becomes way harder to just brush things off because the entire world is highlighting your struggles, your pain, and all the things that you're going through. He's also in a lot of ways like, made himself easy to attack and easy to hate because of the way he's promoted himself, the antics, the trolling, the shock value, which has kept him trending, but it's also put a target on his back, right? And if we put the antics aside for a second, I actually think he's handled himself pretty well considering the circumstances he's been in. Being a young black man in his position who's openly gay, right? That's already alienated him from a big portion of the black community, and that alone puts him in a very unique and very difficult spot because it means that he's had to fight for his place in the culture while also dealing with constant criticism. And honestly, most people are just not built, like as human beings, we're not built to handle all that validation, all that negativity coming towards us.
Yes, I agree.
So the kind of thing we're seeing isn't just a celebrity problem. This is a human problem. Whether it's due to the pressures of fame, anxiety, depression, addiction, those things don't care about how many records you've sold. I mean, take away the fame and Lil Nas X is still just that kid from Atlanta who grew up feeling out of place, feeling bad about who he was because that's what the world around him made him feel. And the reason why I'm leading with so much compassion is because first of all, like I've seen the response to this. There's a lot of people who are kind of like going in on him. And also second, at the end of the day, I'm a motherfucking human being too. I can recognize when someone else is hurting because I know what it looks like. I think what we're seeing is the result of going through real life struggles, but with fame stacked on top of it. And fame doesn't just add pressure, it amplifies everything. The highs feel bigger, but the lows cut way deeper because everything you do is publicized. From one human being to another, I really hope Lil Nas X actually, ends up going through this and hope he gets his act together, whatever he's going through, right? Hopefully this is just a phase and not the start of something that ends up destroying him or like, God forbid, right? Like defining him in the worst way. Because at the end of the day, behind all the headlines and the antics, this is still a young man trying to figure himself out, man, and figure out his life. And I think he deserves the space and support to do that. Anyway, if you made it this far, drop a little like on this video.
Yes, I do. I also think that like people don't even talk when they speak on Lil Nas X. They don't even speak on his music. They speak on that shit that he did with like. They speak on this nigga being a sinner, like, which that probably did get to him. Low key, it could be a troll. It could not be. It's only time would tell. That's what I'm gonna leave it on. Only time would tell.